Am I the only one here that still eats eyeball soup? I am? Oh, well, I should get help. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Since Dial of Destiny is just a few days away, I reviewed Raiders of the Lost Ark, so here are my thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Before I begin, this is a very special movie to me. Not like I said in my Raiders of the Lost Ark review, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom were the two Indiana Jones movies that I grew up absolutely loving as a kid. And I'm just gonna say this now. I think that this is still my favorite Indiana Jones movie. A lot of people say Raiders of the Lost Ark for every right reason that they have, but was the one that I grew up watching all the time when I was younger. It's the movie that I watch all the time. It's the one that kind of got me hooked to this character and franchise. It probably has to do with the fact that my grandma, like I said, her and my mom were the reason that I got into this franchise, and she would always tell me that I should watch them because I would like them. And he's like, there's literally a part in one of the movies where they eat monkey brains. I was like, ew. Let me rephrase my grandma. My grandma and her. That out of the way, here are my thoughts on it. Starting off with the positives on Temple of Doom is Short Round. He is an awesome addition to this franchise. He's an awesome character. I absolutely love that child actor. I best know him for The Goonies, and he recently won a Best Supporting Actor in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Still yet to watch it. But he is an awesome addition. He is a very fun character. Every time he's on screen, I absolutely love him. And I'm very excited to see what they do with him in the very new movie. I absolutely love Short Round. I also like how his nickname is Shorty, and I also like how Indiana Jones even says like how they met. He's like, oh, since his home got bombed by the Japanese, he's been on his own since he was 4 years old. But I caught him trying to pick my pocket one day. Like it's a very sad backstory, and it's like kind of dark too. When you hear he's like, oh yeah, the Japanese like just bombed like his town and all that. So he's just been on his own, and I just found pick my pocket. That's how we met. And you're sitting there like, dude, you're just saying that the Japanese like just bombed his entire like home. His parents are dead. That's a pretty fucking dark backstory. And then the fact that he doesn't seem to bother by it. Like when you have that your parents just died in a bombing and you've been on your own since you were 4 years old, you'd probably be traumatized. But no, like the relationship between him and Indy is what basically keeps him from being sad. But it's the thing is that they don't really bring it up much. It doesn't seem that he cares about it too much. Maybe because that even in this movie he says that Indiana Jones is his best friend and he absolutely loves him. And it's true too. Those two actors in real life are actually best friends, which is kind of weird when like a 80-year-old man is friends with like a 35-year-old. And this is one thing that this movie does better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is that the action in this movie to me is it's just better. I don't know why, especially like that opening where they're like exchanging stuff, like he gives him the diamond, but then he poisoned him without Indiana Jones knowing. And then like that whole sequence where he like after like one of his friends died and then they get up to like a huge shootout into like this like cool like little bar thing. I really love the action in this movie. It's one of the things that I've always thought did better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's another thing I will talk about later that does better than Raiders of the Lost Ark as well. But to me, the action in this movie is just better, especially that mine scene where they're like the mining carts and then they're like fighting all like the weird dudes like with the swords and all that, and they have to like fight them off and try and not to like crash like the mining cart at the same time. That whole sequence is just awesome as well. To me, just the action in this movie, it's better in my mind. I don't know why. It's just something that I always thought was done better. Maybe because it's been one of my favorite action movies of all time. That's the one thing I feel that it does way better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is a thing that's kind of like a short positive, but it's something that I've always appreciated. Now, unless you're like a nerd like me, then you know about the Indian culture of the time. During the early 1800s and well, not early, late 1800s and early 1900s, the Indian culture, like today, is very poor. They barely had any food, or water. But there's another thing that this movie that shows that actually happened. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, Indian children were in fact kidnapped and enslaved so they would mine for gold and silver. And it's a tragic story because and after a while, no one was there to save them, and they all sadly died because they were all tortured to death because of slavery. It's a very sad story, and it's something that I've always appreciated that they did like a social commentary at the time where kids were kidnapped and they were made into slaves. That's why I like the stories where Indiana Jones goes to like save this Indian culture. That's why I've always loved this movie because maybe because I've always been interested about like how the world was before it is like it is now and like how people treat each other and how people were like sure the Indian culture may still be poor in some areas but you gotta look back at the 1800s and 1900s. They literally had their own children kidnapped and they were whipped. They were made for slaves. Children were made for slaves back in the Indian culture, and it's something that's very dark. And this movie has a commentary on it. It's a very sad, tragic story. But it's something that, like I said, I've appreciated that it did that. One of the things that I love about this movie is that Indiana Jones just crashed there and he's just helping out this Indian culture. I like it. It's something that I've always appreciated. It's some of the stuff that I actually go back. And if you want to learn about the Indian culture, I would actually recommend this movie. It has a commentary on it and it shows you back in the in 1930s. It if you want to learn more about it, if you want to know stuff about it, this is the movie for you, and I would recommend it if you want to learn more about the Indian culture. But with that out of the way, I just love the way that they showed that how it was back then. It's not much to comment about, and it shouldn't be in the conversation, and I don't want to make a bunch of controversy. But it's something that I've always enjoyed and loved, and I'm glad that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg decided to do that. Going along with that, I've always loved this story. Like I said with the Indian culture, is that Indiana Jones, like he was supposed to just make like a simple trading deal, but it all went to fucking shit basically. And he had to he tried to trade with a diamond for like this weird thing that he tried to hunt down, but it all went to shit. He didn't get the diamond. He was poisoned and all that. And then they get on a plane to go somewhere, but they realize that the plane they got on was owned by the guy that they were trying to escape from. And then the two guys on there just jumped off, and then Indy, Shorty, and whatever the fuck, Willie, her name, like the love interest, they had to just jump off the plane, and then the Indians explained to them that, like a prophecy basically, said that a man would fall from the sky to help them, but Indiana Jones just goes, well, I didn't fall from the sky, our plane just simply crashed. But they believe that Indiana Jones is the man that's going to save them and help out their economy because what since their crystals were stolen by like the villains of this movie, all their crops went to shit, their water turned to sand, all their children were kidnapped, and so Indiana Jones decides to help them so they can get like their whole thing back on track. I like that, and the more it goes on, you kind of find out who these people are and how weird they fucking are. Like when they're going through the jungle, you kind of get like small hints of what's going on, and then you get to the weird castle where the kid's like the king of this like a whole area, and then you find out that all these people are basically hypnotized by all of these villains and all that. It's a very awesome story. Sure, I do prefer the Raiders of the Lost Ark story, but I've always loved this story just a little bit more sometimes. I don't know. Some days my opinion will change. Some days I'll say the story for Raiders of the Lost Ark is better. Sometimes I'll say Temple of the Doom is better. Both stories are great, but I've always loved the Temple of Doom story. The jungle. I really like how this movie takes place in the jungle. I love going camping. I love the wildlife. I love going outside sometimes. Well, going outside part's a lie, but but I've always liked the going to camping, and they really showed off the jungle aspect. Sure, some of the animals here, you could tell look fake. Bats mostly. You could tell they look fake, but it's cool. Especially like that whole scene where they're camping out and Will's kind of like freaking out about seeing all the animals. He did that fucking scream though. Strangler. But I like the whole jungle aspect and how it takes place in the jungle. Sure, it does go. like how with the Indian culture stuff I already talked about since they lived in like forest and all that. I really like this jungle setting. They show it off pretty good, and it's like the perfect setting for an Indiana Jones movie in my mind. My final positive is that I really prefer this villain and from the first movie. This is another thing that I feel that this movie does better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sure, the villains in the first movie, they're interesting. They're Nazis, so they're I guess they're interesting, but we've seen it before. But I didn't find them any. I didn't really find them intimidating. But the villains here, they're fucking awesome in my mind. They're messed up. They do weird shit. They have like this weird cult thing where they rip out your heart and they like and like you're still alive and all that. And he's just holding your heart and all that. And then you get dropped into like this weird pit of like lava or fire or something like that. And to appease the Kalima. What is Golly I don't fucking know. They don't explain it in this movie. But I love these villains. They're interesting. They're more intimidating in my mind, especially the scene where they're trying to get Indiana Jones to drink like this weird potion shit, but he won't drink it. And then the like big buff guy takes his whip and starts beating the shit out of him with his whip. That's like a very scary scene. Like you're like, yeah, these villains are more intimidating. But still, what the fuck is Golly Ma? Talk about that scene where like with the villains where the guy just like sticks his hand in the one guy's chest and he just rips out his heart and he's like Garima, and then he's just like saying weird shit like Manong Chivai, and like the whole scene where everyone's just like singing, you can hear the pounds drumming, you're like, what the fuck? Now on to my one mixed element about this movie, and that's the love interest of Willie. Weird fucking name. I don't really know what to say about her. She's obnoxious in my mind. She's annoying. She's screaming all the time. She's freaking out. She's even like fucking disrespecting the Indian culture. When they offer her food, she's like, "Oh, I can't eat this." Like, lady, this is all I can fucking eat, and you're gonna refuse it? And let's just also add in the fact that she's just always fucking screaming. Did I mention that? I don't think I did. Screaming all the time, like that whole scene where they're in the jungle, she's just screaming, complaining, but at the same time, I understand it. That she's just a singer, she's a Broadway singer, she's a dancer, and she's just thrown into this situation. And she doesn't want to be there, she just wants to go home. I understand it. That's why it's in my mixed element, because I understand why she's complaining and screaming all the time, because she doesn't want to be in this moment right now. But she's just so fucking annoying. She's a fucking girl, I guess. There's literally a part where they're shooting at the guys when they're escaping, and Indy tells her to hold the gun, and then she drops it, like, okay, yeah, it's hot. She didn't, like, it was hot, like, what do you expect? And she goes, I broke a nail! Like, are you fucking kidding me? And there's a part where they're in, like, the cave where Indiana Jones and Shorty are, like, in, like, that spike scene where they're about to get crushed. She's just like, and she's, like, in there, and, like, Indy's, like, telling her to hurry up. She's like, alright. Oh, I broke a nail. And there's a part where he tells her to pull the lever, and sure, there's, like, a bunch of shit in there. But, lady, these two are about to fucking die, and you're saying, like, cheats should do it? Yeah, if he could fucking do it, they would have been out of there, like, 5 minutes ago. It just aggravates me. All in all, guys, this is a awesome sequel. It's one of the best sequels out there. At some time, maybe this will still be my favorite. I don't know. It could change, but this is still a awesome Indiana Jones movie. To me, it might be the best Indiana Jones movie out there. So this is a movie where I definitely recommend that you go out and buy it. Do you guys think of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? Do you prefer this over Raiders of the Lost Ark? Do you prefer Raiders of the Lost Ark? Do you not like this movie, or do you love this movie? Let me know in the comments below and we will talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you loved it, subscribe and hit the notification so you will get notified for my latest videos. But until my next video, take care.